it could be the end of the line for a century-old Thunder Bay Shipyard. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The doors at the former Heddle Shipyard have been closed, with no timeline to reopen.
The facility is more than 100 years old, but the Hamilton-based company that now owns it has idled the Thunder Bay operation. Vasilios Bellos is following this story. Vasilios, what led to this closure?
Well, Ryan, Ontario Shipyards is the current owner of the facility and says it's the result of challenging market conditions and the lack of available skilled labor. 15 employees were laid off as a result, with no confirmation if the site will ever open its doors again. The future's unclear for a Thunder Bay Shipyard and metal fabrication facility that's been operating here under different names for more than a century.
Myself and family members have put a lot into this. So yeah, it's a sad state to see what has happened.
Hamilton-based Ontario Shipyards, formerly known as Heddle Shipyards, says it's temporarily idled the historic Thunder Bay plant with no word on when or if it'll reopen. It resulted in 15 Fabmar metal employees to be laid off with severance. Fabmar is the fabrication and marine repair company that was purchased by Heddle in 2021, with staff and equipment moved into the facility. Former President Dale Reininen says while he's disappointed about the move, he feels the site is still viable.
A person could come in here and open the door and go to work. As long as they had the labor pool to do it, there's plenty of equipment that is operational and ready to go. And some of the best equipment in the city is sitting right here, and it's idle, and it's a shame.
Reininen goes on to say, thankfully, the 15 tradespeople that were laid off quickly found work.
We remain committed to the Thunder Bay Shipyard and to the community of Thunder Bay.
Ontario Shipyards Director Ted Kirkpatrick says the plan is to eventually get the Thunder Bay operation up and running again. Kirkpatrick says material and workforce challenges led to the idling, with these factors now part of the regular ebb and flow of the industry.
The ship repair business is inherently cyclical, so it's fairly up and down. And just with some of the activity that's going on in Thunder Bay, there's been a significant uptick in the mining activity, what is already a challenging labor pool in the north, and kind of further straining that.
I'm hoping that they will come back and potentially make it right and do what they said they were going to do and bring projects into the city for the betterment of the city.
Kirkpatrick couldn't provide timelines for any decisions on the facility. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
A controversial comedy group is scheduled to perform in our city next month, but officials with Diversity Thunder Bay are calling for their shows to be canceled.
Cricket's Comedy Club is hosting the Danger Cats, 3 comedians from Alberta who've been flagged for offensive content by the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. Jaden Billick has more.
Comedy troupe Danger Cats have recently seen some of their shows cancelled for what has been deemed problematic content. And now they're bringing their act to Thunder Bay. The trio is set to perform 4 shows at the Odeon Theatre, hosted by Cricket's Comedy Club. The Danger Cats are now infamously known for their offensive shock content, recently selling a shirt depicting a caricature of serial killer Robert Pickton, murderer of dozens of primarily Indigenous women. Diversity Thunder Bay is calling for the cancellation of the shows, saying the group has no place in our town.
When you normalize that as humor, I think it desensitizes people to the gravity of the issue. And we're coming from a community that is known for deeply, deeply troubling racism, especially towards Indigenous people. If we want to move forward with reconciliation, and if we want to try to dispel that image of us nationwide, we have to do something about this and stand up and say, guys, this isn't cool.
The Danger Cats are known to cross lines with their comedy, notably with a joke about residential schools that Diversity Thunder Bay deemed to potentially make a large portion of our population uncomfortable. Chris Melowishin, owner of Cricket's Comedy Club, spoke about the Robert Pickton shirt and why he feels the show should go on.
Okay, the shirt that they're referring to, okay, that actually happened. Okay, but we're not selling their shirts. We have nothing to do with what they market, who they hang out with, what they do in their personal life. We are doing a show, a comedy show. If you like it, show up. If you don't have to. Comedy is subjective, like food. I eat meat. You're not going to see me in a vegan restaurant because that's not my thing.
Diversity Thunder Bay believes an event such as this one normalizes the dehumanization of Indigenous people and the violence toward them. Jaden Billick, TBT News.
Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu says it's shocking and offensive that the Ford government expects federal funding for a much-needed new hospital in Kenora because of that area's large Indigenous population.
Where are the feds, right? Just like Sioux Lookout, these are hospitals that serve a critical mass of First Nations people.
Premier Doug Ford committed to building the new hospital at a news conference earlier this month, but offered no details. And although healthcare is a provincial responsibility, Indigenous Affairs Minister Greg Rickford suggested the high Indigenous population warranted a federal contribution to the project. Ford signed a $3 billion healthcare deal with Ottawa in February, and Hajdu says that funding came with a commitment to improve healthcare equity in the province.
I was quite shocked that Ontario would not think that Indigenous peoples, indeed all peoples of Northwestern Ontario, have the right to equal access to healthcare. To imply that because Kenora has a dense population of Indigenous people in some way means that the people of Kenora are not the responsibility of the provincial government, I think that's quite frankly misguided and offensive to Indigenous peoples.
Hajdu acknowledges that Ottawa does have an important role to play in delivering healthcare services to Indigenous people, particularly on reserves. But she says the province has the same responsibility to provide care to First Nation patients as to everyone else in Ontario.
Early childhood educators in this province are still waiting for the wage increase that was promised by the Ford government.
Advocates say the delay is contributing to an ongoing staff shortage and causing a lot of stress for those who are working in the field. CTV's Siobhan Morris has the story.
It was an announcement that filled registered early childhood educators with hope.
This represents a 19% increase.
A pay bump for RECEs to attract and keep them in the profession, to ensure the $10 a day childcare program is viable. Workers were expecting a raise in January. Now, well into April,
RECEs have not seen their wage increase yet.
The Minister of Education has boasted about the size of the increase, moving the minimum wage from $19 an hour to almost $24 this year.
Many early childhood educators are working second jobs. They're relying on support from family members. We don't understand why this has taken so long.
The opposition pressed the government on that question earlier this week.
We've heard they're going to raise them. Tell us when, and so that people can look forward to an increase in their pay packages.
In the legislature, Stephen Lecce didn't make the timeline explicit, but says he appreciates the work of RECEs.
We'll increase wages by $1 per hour per year every year over the course of this agreement. We have ensured wage parity. We've now moved from one of the lowest levels to the median average.
The government hasn't been able to explain the holdup, but there are lots of steps with funding flowing from Ottawa to the province, to municipalities, to care providers, and then into the bank accounts of workers. The ministry expects daycares to give workers that extra pay by the end of the month. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Minister of Education writes in part, "We appreciate that these payments must get out as quickly as possible. That is why we are working with municipalities to ensure all eligible RECEs receive their full back pay and wage increases."
It's important that RECEs know that they will receive it back paid till January. But in terms of life and planning and affordability, waiting and the uncertainty of it has been really stressful.
Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Many Ontario healthcare workers are getting another pay raise. 65,000 hospital workers will receive a 6% wage increase over the next 2 years, as well as improvements to benefits and extra pay for weekends and night shifts. The new deal was completed between CUPE and the Service Employees International Union and the Ontario Hospital Association. There will also be mandatory reporting around the use of agency nurses, who unions have argued undercut their workers, cost more, and are a band-aid solution to a staffing crisis.
Fort William First Nation recently passed a new dog control bylaw.
The local canines will no longer be allowed to roam free within the boundaries of the First Nation. Lee Noonan has the details.
Canine residents of Fort William First Nation could soon be in hot water if they're caught running at large on the reserve. A new dog control bylaw was recently passed, which will require dog owners to register their furry companions with local animal control and keep them tied up or fenced in at all times. In the past, it wasn't unusual to see dogs running loose, according to Fort William Chief Michelle Solomon, but she says it's time to put a stop to it.
They're becoming more and more populated in community, and the dogs becoming more populated in community. We see that, you know, there is risk of harm with animals roaming free, both for animals and for people that are walking or biking through the community.
Solomon says she's seen a very positive reaction from community members who've raised safety concerns for some time.
It's one thing if there's a dog running loose, but when you have multiple dogs running loose and they're packing up, that becomes a really dangerous situation.
Dog walkers will now be expected to use a leash, and loose dogs will be impounded at the owner's expense. The bylaw also requires aggressive dogs to be muzzled and prohibits anyone from abandoning a dog or removing a dog from the community.
We know that this has been a problem historically where dogs have been just dropped off in our community. And also, you know, despite the fact that dogs might not be tied up, if they're out here, they probably do belong to somebody. So we do ask that people don't pick dogs up in the community and take them into the city.
The new rules are being gradually phased in, with information sessions and registration opportunities planned over the coming months and a schedule of fees and penalties still to be determined. The bylaw should be fully implemented by the end of July. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce is bringing back its popular Brewha Festival for another year at the waterfront. Last year, a few thousand patrons gathered at Prince Arthur's Landing for the live music, tasty festival foods, and of course, the dozens of different craft beer selections. This summer, the Brewha Festival is being held on July 5th and 6th. It will feature a flavorful new event from the Sleeping Giant Brewery and the Cheese Encounter Shop called A Journey Through Beer and Cheese, and it's all for a great cause. Last year, Our Kids Count was the charitable partner and received over $6,000 from the event. This year's local charitable partner has yet to be announced. Chamber President Charla Robinson says the Brewha Festival is a great opportunity for people to come out and try local foods and beverages.
But really, it's all about, bringing people together to celebrate local flavors. What a great way to spend your summer weekend with, the best craft brews, delicious food, and live music. And so more of those details will be rolling out. But right now, we're really excited to have 17 breweries signed up and to have this new event to really showcase the cheese encounter and how cheese fits with beer.
Perfect. There are 2,000 tickets available for each day of the Brewha Festival. They can be found online on the event's Facebook page or at the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce website.
I'm sure a lot of people looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
And, it's a little bit ironic that we're talking about a summertime festival today because, Fiona, there were some flurries flying around. I was not pleased when I was out there today.
I'm feeling your wrath.
I said I wasn't going to complain for a while, but
it lasted
all
one day.
bets are off when there's snow in the air.
Yeah, all right. Well, I guess I had it coming. There were periods of snow moving through the region today. Thunder Bay, for the most part, kind of staying out of the line of fire, just cruising slightly north of us, but that didn't mean we were able to avoid the winds, which were gusting up to 51 kilometers per hour from the west. So although we did warm up to a high of 5, it certainly didn't feel like that. It was definitely cloudy. It was definitely chilly. On a positive note, we stayed above the freezing mark. So there's at least that. But if we take a look at what's going on to the west, not a lot of movement in temperatures from the overnight lows to the daytime highs, fluctuating maybe 3-4 degrees in total, pretty much across the board. Fort Frances started out below the freezing mark. They topped out at about 2 Celsius. They're currently sitting at 1. A lot of cloud. Red Lake has had light snow showers for most of the day. They're currently sitting at -2.
We warm up just barely above freezing in Sioux Lookout, and then we're at 2 for Atikokan, Upsala, Armstrong, Greenstone, where they're dealing with some freezing rain or just some drizzle. And then we hit the hot spot, being Sault Ste. Marie at 4 Celsius at this time, under mostly cloudy skies, Wawa matching that. Now, in Thunder Bay tonight, we will drop below the freezing mark tonight, and in fact, because the wind is going to continue to be quite gusty, up to 50 kilometers an hour, -3 is going to probably feel closer to -7, and that risk of showers that we were experiencing today while we were on the plus side is expected to change and transition to possible flurries. I have to say possible because so far it has been staying just north of the city. But I do have somewhat good news that it will be a little bit warmer for folks, so I'm hoping that starts to get me on Ryan's good side again.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see. We'll have to see what the weather brings.
Ryan, please.
Thanks a lot, Fiona. We'll get through. You and I will be fine. All right, let's turn our attention to international news now. And there are calls from the international community for both Israel and Iran to de-escalate after retaliatory drone strikes, the latest from Israel, apparently overnight, although that hasn't been confirmed by Benjamin Netanyahu's government. We'll have details on that and more when your Friday News Hour continues.
Israel had to respond in some way, and their war cabinet was clear on this.